this is Flipgrid for remote teaching presented by the technology training team. Today we have with us your Flipgrid team. We have Michelle Conti, Renee Henderson, Sarah Thomas, myself, I'm Gina Tuzo, and Jake Voschel. We are T3 technology team training members and a smaller group that is presenting the session and follow-up support for Flipgrid. So let's get started. Today, we'll take a look at what is Flipgrid, how do we participate, what's the student experience like, how do we create these for students to use? So what is the teacher view? What are some different instructional uses for the tool, how it can be used across all grade levels, across all content areas? Some additional resources and fun new updates that have just been released literally last night. And then a few times throughout the session and at the very end, we'll also have a question and answer period. So what is Flipgrid? Flipgrid is an easy to use tool that allows teachers to create prompts. It can be one prompt, it can be a series of prompts where you give students a task, and in response, students are able to record whether they do their faces or they just do a different screen. It allows them to record their response. And so this is just another level of interactivity that allows us to give students a bit of choice and a bit of control. I personally love this a lot for our students that speak other languages or are learning a new language, as well as special ed students that maybe are a little bit more comfortable speaking responses and explaining orally rather than trying to type or write something down. So it's a really versatile tool. It's really grown, and we hope that you'll, through this session, see just how useful it can be. We're going to start out with a few examples that we can take a look at. So we've actually created a grid that is just sort of some quick examples. So one of my colleagues will post the link for you in the chat as well. If you click the link to go to the Flipgrid, there at samples, and we'll go there in just a minute. As soon as we talk about what we're going to see, you can enter the password, and then inside of the grid, we have 7 topics, okay? So the grid itself is sort of the big overarching thing, and then that says, hey, there's stuff here to do, and this is what it falls under. And then under those are all these different individual topics. So here we have samples from special education, from arts and cinema, computer science, gen ed science at the elementary level, a middle school math example, high school ELA and literature, and even a phys ed. There are lots more examples, but we want to give you a minute or two to explore and look at some. So I'll go ahead and click to open this up, and let me move this here so that hopefully we'll still be able to see the closed captioning as well as the Flipgrid information. And I'll go ahead and enter the code. Oh, something went wrong. What am I missing? Okay, I'm not sure why it isn't working. Let's take a look here. Worked this morning. Let me go ahead and log in and see if I missed something.
It's working on the participant end, Gina. So
yeah, Randy, I don't know what's going on with my headset.
The link and then type in the password, it's going straight in for us.
Okay, great. So then I'll just continue here with the view that I have, if you're able to see.
I don't know what's tried this. I don't know.
So here we see the different topics. So here's the main grid. This is where you sort of get your big overall topic of this could be math, this could be science, this could be unit 5 for whatever unit you're teaching. And then here are individual tasks, if you will. So I'll just click on a few, and please feel free to look at a few for yourself. I really enjoyed this one, The Catcher in the Rye Cocktail Party. So they have different quotes from the book that students can read out with inflection, and trying to really convey the characteristics of the characters from the novel that said it. I really thought that was an interesting an interesting approach to how this tool could be used. And I just closed out of it. Sorry about that. There are some other instructional examples. I really like this flip a coin workout from PE. So this is really fun. You see the directions there. They challenge someone in their household each day. They flip a coin and have to do, based on heads or tails, each of these different activities. And then at the bottom, you see the options for, this is where students would actually record. So when students come here, they just click the record button and they're able to go ahead and do that relatively quickly and easily across all different devices. Okay, so just a quick peek at those, and we're going to go ahead and go back into our presentation. All right, so we want you to get the student experience with this. So here we have a link to another Flipgrid. This is a different one, and there's just one topic here on this grid for you to complete. What you're going to see is when you go into this grid, you'll click the green plus button to start recording your video, and this is the experience your students will have. Then you'll click the recording sign to start your recording. You'll click next to play back so that you can preview your video. If you want to re-record it, there is a redo button with a trash can. Otherwise, if you're happy with the video, you can go ahead and click next. And then it's going to prompt you to take a thumbnail or cover photo so you can snap a quick photo and then publish your response to our class grid. Okay? When you've completed that, we just want you to take a minute to think about that experience. Was it difficult? What steps or supports might you need to provide your students with this tool so that they'll be successful in using it? So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here we have the grid. And you can click record a response. Hopefully everyone's able to get in. If you click the link from the presentation, are you able to access the grid so that you can try and record? Let us know in the chat. So you'll click record a response. If you get asked to allow the camera and microphone, you want to select allow. And here we see it's ready to record my video. So I can just click this button here. Flipgrid is definitely one of my favorite tools that I actually learned outside of the schoolhouse when I went to a session for technology outside of the district, and another educator that had been using it shared it with me, and I love it. It's a really fun tool. It's easy for the kids to use. I like that it's got a lot of teacher controls so that I can sort of monitor things, allow students access to things. I like that it's asynchronous, so we don't all have to be together, but we still have that face-to-face personal connection. And it's really one of my favorite tools. I love it. Okay, so I stop recording and click next. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select next. I'm okay with my recording. Now it's asking for my selfie. Okay, so I have my selfie. And now it's going to post it. I can put my name. and submit my video. All right. All right, I see one other person has submitted. So hopefully you're in the process of doing that. We'll give you another minute or two. You may have noticed some other icons in there that we're going to talk about shortly. And also we're going to take a look at how the grids get set up so that we're able to see things, whether students can see each other's grids, things of that nature. We also want to remind you when using this tool or any video tool with students not to share on social media. MSDE has provided some guidance during this time that no student voices or faces should be posted publicly on social media or otherwise. So we just want to make sure that you are aware of that. Okay. And keep in mind that the chat is open if you need a little bit of guidance trying to record your video or push that out in Flipgrid. I'll go ahead and refresh and see. Oh, awesome. We've got some more. Also, you in the chat can also let us know, reflect on your experience, that experience of recording for the first time perhaps, or even if you're a pro at Flipgrid already and just here to check out some new stuff, let us know in the chat. How was that experience for you? Did you find it easy? Was it confusing? What challenges might it present for your particular students and their needs? So to see the responses, you want to keep hitting that refresh button in your browser. And as new responses are entered, they'll pop up. Students seeing each other's videos, that is actually one of the controls that's available that we're going to show you when we walk through how to set them up. Don't worry, Glory, we're not going to share these out with anyone. It's okay. All right. All right. So hopefully most of you have been able to get that student experience. Okay. So once you complete your recording and you press that submit video button, there'll be a follow-up button that says complete. It's also a red button. Once you click that complete, that means that it'll post to the grid and we'll be able to see it on our end. Okay. All right, so I'm going to continue on in our presentation at this time. You may have noticed some of these additional cool things when you were going to the recording. There were some icons just above that record button. And those are fun little extras and add-ons that you can allow. You can turn them on or off. We've got filters. We have adding some text. You can actually have students add text over top of things. So if you wanted them to have a picture and maybe label things, they could even do something like that. We've got stickers because who doesn't love emojis? You're able to draw. There's a whiteboard space that you could even upload and some photo stickers. So there's lots of really cool things that have been added to this that up the engagement for our students. They're kind of used to this level of engagement with digital things where it's gamified or it's made fun. And so this also does that as well. Okay. So when you submit your video, you'll include your name, you can include a title, you can even include links to additional things. And you saw this as I walked through submitting my video. Okay, looks like we're up to 13 responses. So thank you for those of you that continue to go ahead and submit your video. Appreciate that. We're going to take a pause right now to address any questions. And if any of my colleagues have seen questions that have come up in the chat that I've missed, please feel free to unmute and jump in to answer those. I'll try and scroll back. Thank you, Julie. I love that you found the tool easy to use.
So Gina, the biggest one that I've seen repeated so far was about the opt-out permission and how this interacts with MSDE's guidance on recording.
Great question. Thank you so much, Jake. So the guidance from MSDE was pretty straightforward and clear for us. And so one of the things that we did was the department created those opt-out the opt-out form, which allows parents to opt out in two different fashions. So we kind of think of it as two groupings. The first would be teacher-controlled video, which are things like Zoom and Meet. So a parent could say, I don't want my student participating in those, and that's fine. The second option is what we refer to as student controlled. So in this case, the student is controlling the video. They don't have to record their face. They could be recording a paper and it's just their voice, right? Parents can opt out of that. So we do recommend that you definitely check the opt-out forms, and for anyone who is opted out of either of those options, that you provide them with an alternative means to complete whatever the assignment is and still have access to the content. So that's very important to keep in mind. Now, if there are no opt-out, then you're good to go. And the only thing that you need to remember is not to share any of the recordings outside of Google Classroom. That's the only place that they should be. So we're not posting on social media. We're not posting on our school website. They're just inside of Google Classroom. Great question. Okay. Were there, I'm sort of relying on my colleagues here a bit. Were there other questions to address right now before we go into our next session, which I think is Jake? I think we're going to pass it off to you next.
Right. The last two, the opt-out form, I just want to touch on this again real quick. Opt-out form information was posted on the site with guidance, but that information was all shared with building level administrators for how they were disseminating that information out to families. So questions about the specifications for your opt-out form, we've provided that guidance and the tool to the schools. The schools were responsible for making sure that information got shared out. So check with your building level admin for that piece. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over. Thanks, Gina.
Thanks, Jake.
All right. Is everyone able to see my screen okay? Perfect. So we're going to go through a slightly different aspect now. So Gina walked us through our student experience, and I'm going to kind of take you through the teacher experience portion. So we'll take a look at some of the reasons for using this. You want to be able to empower your student voice. So one of our big proponents before we went to this remote teaching scenario was to enable the ability for students to have a voice in their learning and their instruction. So that's one of our biggest piece. Enabling them to help decide what they learn, why, where, when, and how. So some of those options have kind of been removed because of how we're working now. Leveraging the technology and making sure they have choice, personalizing that learning environment for our students, and then promoting student agency, making sure that they have a voice in the product of their learning. How can I show you or tell you what I've learned? So the three big steps in setting up a Flipgrid for instruction is setting up your grid. Your grid is essentially your classroom. This is your message board where you will post questions. Those are referred to as your topics. And then the student responses are going to appear in a tiled grid. Topics are exactly what they sound like. They're prompts, or they're often referred to as your discussion questions posed for students to respond to. The neat thing when we look at this in just a moment is topics can have additional instructional elements added to them. So instead of it just being a question, it can be a question in which I've included a video in the grid itself. So the topic can have other elements added to it, which will expand on additional opportunities for them. And the last piece is, how do I share this? It can get shared directly to Classroom. The link will be there automatically for students. So I know there was some discussion earlier about, how do I get this to students for them to log in? They're going to log in, they'll click the link in Classroom. Because it's secure and you can set this so that it's only accessible to pgcps.com or .org accounts, it protects our students with another layer of security. So just want to show you the slide, and then we're going to pop out and take a look at some of these pieces. You're going to go to flipgrid.com. We'll do an educator sign up. The really nice thing from students, they don't need to sign up. They just need to access the link. Sign up with your Google account. You'll notice here on the side, it says it pretty directly. Students and participants do not need accounts. They simply enter the Flipgrid code. Depending on how your settings are set up, you can block that access. Create a new grid. You're going to add the blue plus. You'll name the grid. Select the grid type. You'll notice that in the example here on to the far right, the grid type that I selected was school email. So the students would be using their school email to access that information. And then create a flip code. So on the flip code description, this little image that I have here, I customized the code with my last name and then a 4-digit number. So you can customize it based on your name or your classroom, so the code is easily accessible for students and quick for them to remember. For student safety, when we go to log in, and we'll walk through these steps in just a moment, just a reminder, this entire presentation plus the recording will be hosted on the remote teaching site. We'll add in the @pgcps.org as our school email domain, and that will ensure that only students who log in with that type of account are ready to be set up. All of those setups are done. You can share that information to Classroom. All right, so let me back up. I'm going to open up that other tab. So go to flipgrid.com, and I'm going to do educator sign up is what you would do. I need to do login. Log back out real quick. Sorry about that, folks. So if I do sign up today, if I do my educator login, I can do my Google login, and I can access that information to log in with my Google account. Choose my information, tells me my login is successful, and that's going to access and bring me into my account. So from within this, you'll notice at the top of the platform, it's my activity, my grids, mixtapes we may reference a little bit later on, grid pals we'll talk about. These are connections to other folks. Disco Library is going to be our connection to curricular resources. So those are some of those pieces that we're going to go ahead and take a look at as we walk through. So our first step is our topic creation. You're going to identify what your topic is, add your description or text for that. You're going to set the time. So this is a change if you've used Flipgrid or have seen it experienced before. It originally started at 15 seconds. It can now go up to 10 minutes. You want to be aware of how long you set the time for them to record so that it makes the most sense. This was the section here, and we'll look at this live in a moment, for setting video moderation. This little red circle with a hand in it, if I toggle that on, I have to approve all videos that get posted before they occur. Under advanced, we'll take a look at topic status and video features. So let's go back in real quick. It's going to ask me to add a new grid. So this would be for whichever class it is that I'm teaching. So I'm going to teach RELA Mod 1. When I scroll down, you'll notice I'm doing my grid first. We're going to use school email so that I don't have to plug in student names. And then I've got my code down here at the bottom. So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put Voshel 1234, and it tells me that it is available. So I'm going to hit next. Now it asks for your school domain email. Since you signed in with your PGCPS accounts, you'll be able to just type in @pgcps.org. This is indicated on the presentation, so you can reference back to that. I'll go to next. Here's my account. So my grid is ready. When I go to grid, this is my grid. I can customize the picture in the background. And now I want to add a topic. So I'm going to go into add topic. In 8th grade, we were reading The Outsiders. And I'm going to type in reflect on Ponyboy's actions. So my question might be, or my stimulus statement, watch the video clip. If I could type, it would be easier. And respond to the differences in the book and the movie. Let me fix my typos. Now at this point, this is quickly the direction. There's the title for the topic. I can scroll down, and I'm going to give them 1 minute and 30 seconds for this. In this instance, I'm going to turn the moderation on. You'll notice down at the bottom, I have some additional media resources that I can add. I can record a video. If I was teaching PE, I could show how to do a layup and then have students record their version of doing a layup. If it's a video that I've already captured, I can grab that. I can also grab a YouTube video. So I'm going to log into YouTube quickly, see if I can find the one that I just had. I'm going to grab the video clip that I want to use, and I'm going to grab something that's rather short that I want to access. Here's my link. So I'm going to click on the video. I'm going to grab the entire URL from the address bar. So I'm going to hit copy, go back to Flipgrid, and I'm simply going to paste the video in. Once that's been added, this becomes part of the topic assignment that I provide to my students. If I go to more options, I can add additional attachments. I can adjust the time. There are other features that you can add. I can put in video editing. The one down here at the bottom is the reason I wanted to show this to you. Student-to-student replies. Allow students to reply via video to another student. I may want to turn that piece off for now and just allow them to respond to the original post. So you can take a look at the different settings that are here. And then you've also got the options for different types of feedback if you wanted to use those. So just quick refresher, added in the title for my topic, gave in my prompt, adjust the time, I turn on voice moderation, I added a resource to focus their attention. And then I went down under advanced features and I turned off student to student replies. And now I'll click create topic. Once the topic's ready, I know I want to post this to Classroom. So I'll click share to Google Classroom. My Classroom window opens. And I'm going to post this to my class. I'm going to create an assignment. So I'm going to build it directly from within. And I'll hit go. Type in the name of my assignment. And I'm going to make sure that I provide choice for my students. They can either post to Flipgrid or write a response because a student may choose not to do video. But it's also a good practice to give them choices. I'm going to add it to my topic. The Flipgrid link is here. I'll set my due date, whatever the case is for Classroom, and I'll hit assign. At this point, that has been posted to Classroom. This is what it's going to look like on the student side. They're going to go to classwork. I'm going to scroll down to reflection, and they get the link for the assignment. They click the link, and it's going to take them straight to where they need to be. So topic creation, we just walked through. We did topic status. These were the two big features that I made sure that we covered. And then share to Classroom. Trying to watch time to make sure that Sarah has time. The part here at the very bottom, I want to make sure I point out, always make sure that you have an alternative activity for any students who choose not to use video or has an opt-out form for using Flipgrid. Providing choice, part of the purpose for using Flipgrid is making sure that students have choice in what they are doing for an assignment. In this instance, I want them to watch a video clip and then respond based on that information. They could just as easily do it as a written assignment. So when I build this in Classroom, my instructions would give them the choice from there and then allow students to decide which way they wanted to complete the activity. All right. I know that was a lot of information and I kind of went through it quickly in the demo. Let's take a look quickly. I don't have the chat in front of me. Ladies, my colleagues, so what do we have in chat? We'll pause for questions.
There is a question about adding co-teachers to the grid. So I'll show you that in my section when we get into that, because that's kind of a that's a feature that we'll dive into in just a moment. There's a question about how do we know if a student opted out? And my colleagues can jump in on this, but checking with administrators, I think, is what we recommend. Is that correct, team?
That's correct. So the administrators passed out or sent out, communicated with families. Should have been 2 weeks ago, if not 3. And how that information was coming back depended on the school. So some had them return, the opt-out forms were communicated with teachers, some came back through guidance, some came back to the front office secretary. It really depends on how the school wanted to handle the opt-out form. We didn't tell them how they had to do it. We provided them with the resource and the guidance, and then each school made that decision independently.
Hey, Jake, it's Gina. There was also a question about the topic tip section. It's definitely not mandatory, but that's a place where you can provide some additional guidance to students. Sometimes they might need some additional prompting questions or directions for what it is your expectations are for that particular thing. So that's under the topic tip section. So if you don't want to use that, feel free to leave it off or leave it blank. But if you know that your students might benefit from a little bit of extra direction or clarity or guiding questions, you can definitely post those in there.
And that, for those of you who are looking, if you walk through, that topic tip is after that first section, you get past these little pieces where sometimes it's a Bitmoji or an emoji, a link to a Kahoot. There was more features. The first one there is that topic tip that Gina was just referencing.
And Jake, one other quick question about device access. So the great thing about this tool is that it does work across all devices. So regardless of what device your students may be on, I believe there's a Flipgrid app for mobile devices. It works great in the web browser. I have not come across any instances where the tool itself didn't work. Usually if students can't get in, it's one of those initial settings that are involved. So as a teacher, maybe you set to have a password or you set a time where the grid would expire, something along those lines that prevents students from getting in, but it does work across all devices. So great question. Thanks.
Hey Jake, there was a question about co-teachers, but I needed the question to be a little more exact. So if Emily can type clarification for her question so we can address it, we greatly appreciate it.
Perfect. And I believe Sarah's getting ready to cover co-participant. She goes through. So let me move this over to Sarah.
All right. Thank you so much, Jake. And thank you everyone for bearing with us. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully at this time. All right. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. But before we do that, let me go ahead and show you where you can go ahead and, excuse me, I'm sorry. I accidentally clicked, but let me back up. Okay. So going our presentation, really quickly, I'm going to take you to a few teacher tips. So before we jump back into the actual Flipgrid itself. So some of these we've already talked about a little bit. You can add a photo, a link, or an attachment to a topic and provide additional resources. So as Jake was taking you through before, then you're able to add photos, videos, different things of that nature. And a question did come up in chat to see if you needed extra permissions for these. And no, you don't. You can just use the tools that are available to you within Flipgrid. There's another tip here about scheduling topics. So when you're setting up your topics within your grids, so for example, this one here, if I had a new topic that I wanted to add, then I would be able to schedule it. So you'll see here all of my different topics that Gina has set up. So I can, so if I were to go into one, were to edit it, then I would be able to add my launch or freeze date to it. So you could always pre-schedule these and make them go live for a certain date. Now there was a question that came up about how to add co-pilots. So when you're in your grids, then you can there's a helpful link here about how you can add co-pilots here. So you would just go to the actions button on each grid and select add co-pilots, and then enter their email and select invite. So I would have to back up to my grids page. Okay. And under actions, let me see, I think because I'm not the owner of this grid, but actions, I would be able to add co-pilots. So that's how I would be able to add a co-pilot to that particular grid. As Gina shared before, we never want to share this on social media. Another tip is that there is a quick view. So if I were to go into, let's see, our instructional samples, and let's see, I'm trying to remember the one that everyone was on, but I would be able to go in and look at all of these, just kind of scrolling through using my quick view. So I could go in, leave feedback, grade it, comment, things of that nature. And if there were more than one, then I'd be able to scroll through very quickly on that quick view and leave feedback that way. Okay. And also we want to provide feedback to our students, so to let them know that their videos are being watched. And also let them add their selfie stickers and their drawings and things of that nature, if you so choose. It can be disabled if you need it to be, but when you are creating a topic or editing a topic, then you can go in and allow them to add their selfies and their videos. You have all of these different video feature tools on here, and your different requirements, or I'm sorry, your different settings that you can add to it. Okay, so you can toggle these different switches and just make whatever settings are best for your students. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the cool updates to Flipgrid over the past few years. It's been really cool to see all of the different partnerships that they've integrated, all of the different updates that they've added on. We're going to get into the updates in just a moment. But one thing we want to share with you is the Disco library. So let me actually drag my screen down so that you all can see the captions as well. But Disco Library is really cool because these are different topics that have been created by the Flipgrid community. So let's take a look here. Ann Cosma, she works with Flipgrid. She was a classroom teacher when I first met her, but she recently joined the Flipgrid team, and she created this great topic, Would You Rather? So this is kind of like a template. And what you can do is just kind of see a little preview over here on the side. You can see who created it, subjects, their audiences, the number of times used, and notes about it. And if you want to bring it in, then you just select whatever grid you want. I'm going to add it to my randomness one, and I can just go ahead and pull it in. And now, once I have this template, then I can just go in and edit it. I remember a little earlier today, then people were asking if your students are able to see each other's videos. Well, what you're able to do for each topic is turn on this video moderation, and your students will not be able to see the videos until you turn them back, until you approve them. Okay, so if you wanted to make all videos just go to you, then you're able to do that. If you want them to, if you want to be able to go through each one and make sure it's appropriate before sharing it with the class, then you have that option there in video moderation. Okay, so now I can go through, I can customize Ann's template for my students and see exactly, if I want to change it or anything like that. So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna leave this one alone and just delete it for right now. All right. But in my Disco library, I'm able to just go through, see the different playlists that they already have, or I can search and filter by audience. So I have my different grade levels here. I taught middle school probably for the longest time, so I'll go ahead and pick my middle school, but I can also add more than one if I want to. I can pick my subject area. So what do I want to pick? Oh, and look, there's even one for educator professional development. But I can go through, find my different subject areas, and just kind of look and see what they have available. So, wow, look at all of these different resources, and I can just access these templates and use them with my students. I can even just go in and do a search for, let's say, coding, middle school technology coding, and I can just kind of share. And forgive me because my but there we go. So I can see some topics that are already available. Okay, so very cool. And I see in here that there are some partners also. Flipgrid has partnered with a lot of great educational resources such as Vocabulary, Nearpod, Breakout EDU, code. So I can find their different playlists that these companies have suggested as well. So that is super, super helpful. Okay. So we just did this part of the presentation, kind of walked you through it. I'm going to give you maybe about three minutes or so. So you can go ahead and do this as I'm talking. But while you're in Flipgrid, then go ahead, find a grid that you like and add it to your library. So just one more time, just to show you what that looks like. Let me see. Just to see what it looks like. When you're in your Flipgrid as a teacher, you just go into your Disco library and just scroll down and find one that you like and just add it to your grid. Okay. A super long amount of time on this because we know that this goes till 12 o'clock and we don't want to hold you over. But as you're doing this, then feel free to let us know if you get stuck. And also know that this presentation will be available on our PGCPS remote teaching site. So you can always go back and do this later. And you can always watch the recording. The recording will be up in just a couple of days. So I'm going to give you about maybe 30 more seconds, and then we're going to move on to the next thing, which is, spoiler alert, my favorite part. In the meantime, let me crack open the chat and see if there's anything that I can answer really quickly. Let's see. So there should be, let me see. I see that there are, okay, some technical issues. Let's see. Hopefully y'all were able to see my screen.
There was a question, Sarah, about world language resources.
Okay, world language. So when I go in here and I'm in the Disco library, so then I can see language learning. So the terminology might be a little different, but language learning, if I were to go in and look for these, then I could see resources in Spanish, all different kinds of languages. If I wanted to see French, for example, then I just type that and here we go. So I can go in and see different French mini lesson 1. Let's take a look at what this looks like. So we have some really cool topics here. We have this educator, Leah Dupre, who is providing just kind of an intro. And then you have all of these phrases here that the students could do. So you can always go in and make that, you could add that to your grid if you would like. All right. So that, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving just because we are starting to creep up on our time, and we'll come back and revisit the questions in just a moment. I know my colleagues are also answering in chat itself. So my favorite thing, I'm all about the shiny and new. So yesterday, you, if you're subscribed to the Flipgrid newsletter or if you received it, then you probably saw that there are some updates. So one such update is 10-minute responses. So a little earlier, I believe it was Jake who was taking you through setting your lengths for your Flipgrid. So now they have added this 10-minute option. Wow. So that's double the maximum recording time because it used to cut off at 5. So some good tips to think about are when you are setting the length of your video, to consider things such as what age group are your students? What are their needs and their abilities? So when you are setting up your topic, then one best practice to keep in mind is that you may want to establish your students. So let them know in the description, leave a video of at least blah, blah, blah seconds or minutes. And that is if that works well for you. Okay, so another thing is the screen recording. So a question came up in chat about this, if the students can go in and talk over their presentation. And yes, they can. So now you're able to record your screen. I'll actually show you what that looks like. It's really cool, especially now during remote learning. So when I click on, I'm going to go in as an educator. We're going to go there in just a moment. Let me just put this back on so you can see our captions. All right, so going in to my grids, okay, I'm gonna go in and show you, let me actually pick this one. Oh, and just a quick shout out, Powering Up with Technology. This was our conference that we do every year. So stay tuned for info about that, what that might look like in 2020. But I'm just taking this link just to show you what it looks like on the student side. So no need to follow, just watch for right now. Okay, so let's say that I am a student and I am recording, okay? The grid that my teacher has left me, and when I'm doing my response, let me sign in quickly. And you'll note that as I'm signing in, then it's through my, it'll take you in kind of the same way as it does for email, okay? The reason I have to sign in again is because I am on an incognito window. So what I'm able to do here, hello everyone, now you see my, what I'm able to do as a student, I can click on these video options and screen recording beta, and that will allow me to start recording my screen, and I can pick whichever my entire screen is fine. And now it's recording my screen. I'm talking over it. So if you've used the Screencastify tool before, this may look familiar to you. So I'm going to stop my recording. But it has recorded my screen as well as my audio. So that is a really, really cool feature that we wanted to show you. Here to our presentation, okay? Oh, and one more thing that I should probably also tell you is that you can also, let me see, then I can also toggle my audio on or off. Then I can turn it on. Or if I don't want to, I can also toggle it off as a really cool feature. All right, coming back to our presentation, the next thing that we want to show you is about new feedback options. So as a teacher in Teacher View, then I'm able to in and create a cut grid. Okay, so let me come to my educator grid. Okay, so my different topics as I'm going in.
Because I don't want to get credit.
Please ensure
I
that
don't
our
want to lose my
mics
credit
are
for
muted.
doing what I just did. So
Please ensure that our microphones are muted. That would be very, very helpful. Option on your bar is red with the microphone icon, please. All right. So once I have set up a topic and a oops, excuse me, sorry about that. I can go into my edit, and all the way down at the bottom, I see my custom feedback. So this is different because now I can add different criteria, so different categories to my rubric. So that is definitely new. You can also add a description here in the criteria so that the student knows what you're looking for, but it's not going to show up for you when you go through and grade it. So just so that you know that. All right, so that being said, there are I'm going to go through them relatively quickly, but when you go back and access this presentation, which will be available on our site, then the Flipgrid blog is linked here and you'll be able to see all the updates. So So all the ones that we talked about. So one new thing is that there's extensions for Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. So that is pretty cool. If you are if you're a Google Power user, then or a Microsoft Edge Power user, then there is a Chrome extension there. In addition, you can also change your grid notifications, because if you've been using Flipgrid, then you would see that every time a student responded to a video, then you would get an email notification. And if you have a lot of different students, then your email inbox is going to get clogged up really quickly. So here, from each grid, then you're able to click on a new action item, grid notifications, and change your settings so that you can get maybe a daily digest instead of each notification being a separate email to your inbox. And last but not least, there are new camera features. We already took a look at the screen recording, which was one of them. And another one is that you're able to use a Blackboard or a whiteboard feature. So your students are able to do that when they go in and respond. So each of these is linked to the announcement. You can go in and click on it when we post the presentation if you want more information about that. Gina talked at the beginning about how this tool specifically, it allows all of your students to use their voices, but we may also hear the voices of students that we don't always hear. So we have a link here about how to empower English learners with Flipgrid. So we highly recommend that you click on that and learn more about it, okay? And in addition, great post here from Jolie Boucher, who has ideas for integrating Flipgrid across all of the content areas. So you can kind of go through and see her great infographic and ideas that she has. In addition, we have several resources linked. Okay, so we have about remote learning with Flipgrid, very timely. We also have about Flipgrid scavenger hunts, different ways to infuse Flipgrid, and down here, ways to get started with Flipgrid. So for you, if you want to go back and refresh on what we presented in this presentation and maybe even get some more tips, then click on that link. This one, Getting Started for Student, is very helpful the first time you roll it out to students. So make sure to click on that, and you can share it with your students, perhaps in Google Classroom. And there's also a link here about integration docs. Lastly, I believe this is last, then there are levels of certification for Flipgrid. So if you click on the very first icon, it's going to take you to a link here about how to become a Flipgrid certified educator. There are 3 different levels that you can go through, and this is great. All right, so we're going to ask you now just to share your ideas about how you can use Flipgrid for an upcoming lesson. So go ahead and please use the chat. In addition, we just want to make sure that you are marked attended for the session. So when you logged in, then you should see your name or your email address or something like that. But sometimes it occasionally comes up with teacher account or owner or username. So if that's the case, then we encourage you to fill out this link, bit.ly/missing attendance. And that will take you to a form to make sure that you are present and accounted for. So, all right. Not least, we have here our contact information. So if you have general questions about anything technology, instructional technology wise, then please contact the technology training team, the very first email address that is listed on here. And if you have specific questions for any of the trainers for this Flipgrid session, then our contact information is located right below it. And if you're a Twitter user, tweet us. We would be very happy to tweet you. And last but not least, our regular website is bit.ly/T3PGCPS, but our remote teaching site is bit.ly/PGCPS remote teaching, where we have so many different resources there. So at this point, I'm going to leave the slide up. Sorry about that. I accidentally clicked my mute button, but hopefully you can still hear me. So I'm going to open my chat and see if there's any questions that came through. All right. I love what Ms. Emba said about using Flipgrid for speaking activities with her English learners. Fantastic. Oh, and we definitely want to thank you all for everything that you do. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. And yeah, we definitely send you kudos for that, for everything that you're doing. All right, and I'm going to ask my colleagues if there are any questions that came through that we haven't answered, that we need to address right now.
I'm scanning through and I don't see anything else major that's there.
All right, fantastic. Well, we definitely want to thank you all for joining us and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yes, Sarah, I'd like to also extend my thanks and appreciation for all of the wonderful teachers that are joining us. Your dedication and your hard work for all of our students and families is so appreciated. And please don't hesitate to reach out to our team with any instructional technology questions or supports that you might need. We are here to support the fabulous work you are all doing. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week. You are valued and you are appreciated.